Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about how values can influence happiness. The two judging functions, thinking and feeling, are what we use to make decisions about what we do, how we act, how to process the world around us, etc. Types that are classified as feelers, so the SF and NF types, often have a preference for judging the world through their value system, whereas thinkers, so ST and NT types, will often have a preference for judging through their logic. In this video, I will be looking at how values are used to experience and judge the world. Judging with values can help us to stay true to ourselves and make sure that everything we do is in line with what we believe to be right for ourselves and or those around us. But it can also pose some problems when there are certain responsibilities we must have, even if we don't necessarily agree with them. To someone who doesn't share our values, or especially to a thinker, this will seem strange. They will just pass our troubles off as not a big deal, like we should open our eyes and realise how good a situation we are in. We have money, a stable job, we can pay our bills, we have a roof over our heads and food to eat. At least we aren't out of work, homeless, or whatever other comparison they choose to use to make us feel like we should consider ourselves lucky. And those are all valid, logical reasons, probably reasons we've already used to convince ourselves to stay in our situation. But if something is causing us to neglect our values, then sadly those reasons will never be enough. A clear example of judging with values as opposed to logic can be seen as why we choose certain jobs. We know that in order to exist in the world, we need money, and the best way to do that is by working. And many of the jobs offered either pay well but don't give us a good work-life balance, or something we really enjoy but pay very little, if at all. It can be very hard to find a happy medium. When we judge with values, if something we do or someone we know doesn't fit in with those values, then it is very difficult for us to continue doing that thing or being around that person without it causing problems. So for example, if the job we have doesn't line up with our values, but we have no choice but to keep it for monetary or other reasons, then we can find ourselves in a state where we feel like we aren't being true to ourselves and our values, and this can lead to physical, mental or emotional problems, as our value system almost fights us to force us to leave the job that is causing us so many internal problems. A useful tip for if you find yourself in a situation where someone or something is making you unhappy is to try to identify the values you have for that thing. If it helps, start by looking at the values you have for all areas of your life, such as your job, your relationships, your home life, your hobbies, anything to get an idea of what is important to you and what values run through them all. An example of some values you may have regarding work are a good work-life balance, flexible working hours, the same hours every day so you can plan things before and after, paid overtime, the ability to grow in the company, respect from managers and fellow colleagues, people pulling their own weight, being able to leave work at work and not bringing home any extra things to do, alongside all the standard values such as integrity, no bullying, racism, sexism, etc. Personally, I value respect very highly. So if I have a friend that suddenly starts disrespecting me by calling me names behind my back or saying things to damage other people's view of me without allowing me the chance to defend myself, I will see that as a red flag that needs addressing. Or if I'm working in a job where they don't respect when I say I can't come in on my day off to cover for someone, and I am seen as a bad employee because of it, that will also be a red flag. Once you have identified your values, both the ones that are being upheld and the ones that are being neglected in each area, you can make a decision on what course of action you need to take. If the company itself is going against your values, then changing departments isn't going to help. But if it is one person, you may be able to have a conversation with them to help them to see what the issue is. I will give an example of an experience I had at a job, showcasing the values I was using to judge what I thought of the job. I will put the values up on the screen as I mention them. Here's the example. I used to work in retail for several years, and I spent 1 year in a high street shop as a sales leader. I initially liked the idea of the job because I like a challenge and there was space to grow. I started as a sales advisor and was promoted to sales leader within a month. I love helping people and felt I could do that in the job as I was able to spend a good amount of time with a customer, going through what they were looking for, without feeling rushed to force a sale and move on to the next customer. I also like the variety. I don't like doing the same thing every single day as I find it boring, but I do like an element of routine, so knowing the shifts I would be working for the next month gave me that routine, but also being customer facing meant I would have the variety of new people every day. However, as I worked there, I found that the job was encroaching on my personal time and my days off more and more. I would often be woken up early on my days off to a text message or a call asking if I could cover so-and-so as they were off sick. And I often felt obligated to go in because I didn't want the rest of the team to suffer by being a person down. Because I have secondary FE, I always want to make sure other people are doing okay and have their needs met, even if it means neglecting my own. And being in this predicament on a nearly weekly basis meant I often had to battle with wanting my day off and having to cancel my plans to help the team. The rotas were being put up later and later, getting to the point where I would close on a Sunday and not know if I was in again on that next Monday or not. And I would have to text the manager to find out. I am a planner. I like to know what days I am working because I started off living alone and wanted to see my friends and family. I work both days of the weekend every week, so it was already hard for me to find time as all my family and friends worked 9 to 5 jobs during the week, so I'd often have to meet them on their lunch break or pop round in the evening after they finish work. I also need alone time. I was getting mostly 2 days off a week, but during sales it was down to 1 and sometimes only 2 half days a week, because I was needed to open the store and brief the staff, or tidy up and close the store because the other manager had to leave early. I often had to stay unpaid past my finishing time because there was a customer who still wanted my help, even though the store was closed and I wasn't able to sell to them, but I also wasn't allowed to ask them to leave. All the store was a mess, and I needed to clean it up ready for the next day, because another manager or the regional manager was visiting first thing, so I needed to make sure that everything was up to date and the store was restocked ready for the visit. I love being challenged, but I found that the only challenge I was getting in that job was whether I could keep a smile on my face the whole shift, even though I was exhausted. Being an introvert meant that all this work with very little time to recharge, being in front of customers all day, and never having a moment's peace, as I was often the only manager in store, so I couldn't leave the store on my lunch break, as I was often called back to the floor to deal with any refunds or complaints, meant I got to a point where I knew I couldn't carry it on. I was extremely drained mentally and physically. I wasn't spending time with family and friends. I couldn't be bothered to do anything on my days off, so all my hobbies went out the window. My partner, who was now living with me, was feeling neglected because I was never able to spend any quality time with him, and I just didn't feel like myself. I had to make a really tough decision between whether it was more important to maintain the stability of a good income and work full-time, or change jobs but add in all that extra stress of trying to find one whilst dealing with stress from the current job, and drop my free time even more. I eventually decided to bite the bullet and drop to part-time hours, so I had more days off, which made it easier for me to properly decide on a long-term plan. I had to choose between logic and values ultimately had to win. Sure, it was tough dropping to part-time hours and still having the same amount of bills to pay, but I had to do what was right for me. Many people thought I was silly for doing that. They thought I was throwing away good money because I wanted to be lazy and only work a few days a week, but I had to be true to myself, and the level of commitment that job required was not something that bode well with my value system. Hence I knew I would never be happy. And when I was able to, I left the job and am now self-employed, which has given me a lot more control over my hours, though it has definitely still caused a lot of problems with the current pandemic. But I'm happier now overall, so I am better able to deal with the problems than I would have been if I was still working at that shop. I share this experience to hopefully help you to see how important values are when making decisions. It is important to add in that one area of your life may not be the only cause of problems, and thus not the only thing you should look to change. For example, your job may be causing a lot of stress, but you will be better equipped to handle it if your home life was more catered to your values. So for me, I had to make sure that I had dedicated time to myself, either before or after work, and that I use it wisely. In my previous job, I was leaving at 7 to 8 in the morning and getting home from work around 7 p.m, and having to cook dinner for myself and my partner, and spend time with him too. Then on my days off during the week, I was catching up on shopping, cleaning, washing, seeing family, etc., so I didn't have the time I needed. So yes, my job was the major cause of stress, but ultimately, it was the lack of free time at home that was making it really tough to deal with. So instead of changing to another job, I decided to drop my hours so I could ensure I had more free time, as that was the big value that was being neglected. It is worth looking at other areas of your life to see if you can fulfill your needs there more. Look at your list of values and see if you can change anything, for example, in your home environment, to incorporate them more. Maybe you need to find an area that can be your quiet place. Maybe you need to cook, paint, dance, write, or sing more to use your creativity. Maybe you need to go for a walk every day to get away from your housemates and have time to think. Maybe you should get up earlier or go to bed later. Or make a meal plan so you aren't stressing every evening about what to eat. Same goes for relationships. Maybe there's a lot of stress in a relationship you have currently that is not allowing you to properly recover outside of work. Often it is a combination of things that is causing stress, and one big thing seems the simplest thing to change. But if you don't change the other areas in your life too, you will only end up back in that same place again. Figure out what is important to you and see whether you can achieve that in your current situation. If there is no way, then make a change, but you may find that you are able to adapt your lifestyle to make yourself happier overall, without the added pressure of drastically changing an area of your life. I hope this helps explain how important values are when it comes to making decisions, and how they really do impact our happiness in all areas of our lives. It is worth knowing what is important to you, so you can see any areas that need to be dealt with, and any areas that you can incorporate more of what you need. Thank you for your time.